The information in this podcast is for general, informational, and educational purposes only. Whilst we love unpacking psychology research and evidence-based insights to support well-being, this podcast is not a substitute for personal mental health care or therapy with a qualified practitioner. Nothing we say should be taken as individualised advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional. You deserve support that's tailored to you.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation, on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture, and community.
Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between psychology, research, and your everyday life. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti.
And I'm Dr. Kira Hart. We're two Australian psychologists.
And we're coming to you today with our last episode of season 1, episode 25.
Exactly, last episode of the year, episode 25, which is very fitting because we are doing reflections on the year 2025.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about how to reflect on the year and why that's important. We're talking about, I guess we're like told to reflect, right? Like self-reflection or reflect on things, but how do we actually do that? How do we effectively reflect on the year that was?
Exactly. And so often at the end of the year, we're so future focused. We're thinking, okay, what are our goals and what are our plans for 2026? And if you want to learn more about that, check out our last episode.
Yes.
But it's also super important to reflect and take stock and think back about, like, what did I achieve this year? Like, how far have I grown? What have I learned?
Absolutely.
So let's unpack it in this episode.
Yeah. We are also going to start, as always, with our wellbeing wins and wobbles. So, Kira, tell me what yours are.
My wellbeing win, this week I signed up for a membership at my local swimming pool. So nice. I went there yesterday and had the best day, and I'm just so excited to continue going to the swimming pool and doing some laps and relaxing and having a bit of me time. So that's been my wellbeing win. And my wellbeing wobble is we're 8 days out from Christmas. By the time this episode drops, we might be like 3 days out from Christmas.
Yeah, no, or like 2. It'll be Tuesday. I think Christmas is on Thursday. Yeah.
And I'm still like halfway through my Christmas shopping. So I'm feeling a little bit stressed out about having to do some last minute purchases and feeling a little bit stuck. So that's got me wobbling. What about you? What's your wellbeing wins and wobbles?
You stole my wobble. My wobble is also that I have not done like the large majority of my Christmas shopping. And yes, Christmas is very soon.
December flies.
Yeah, this is a reflection.
Yeah,
a reflection for us on maybe our years and how busy they've been. No time yet for that pre-planning. I haven't done any of it. So that is my wobble as well. My well-being win is that we are like almost at the holiday time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've made it to here. I'm like ready for my holidays. My well-being win is that the holidays are around the corner and a rest is in sight.
It's been a big year and you deserve a rest.
Big year. So I'm ready to reflect and rest.
Before we get into today's episode, I also just wanted to mention when I rocked up today to record today's podcast, both Lauren and I were dressed in green and white and black. So.
Yeah. We've been having a little matchy moment. I think maybe this is a well-being win for us. We're like a telepathy. Something is forming in our podcasting relationship in that we know what's going on.
We know
that's not very psychologically sound in research, but maybe we're just we're forming those connections somehow, because it happened last episode too with our blue theme.
We were both in like navy blue.
And I swear to all the listeners, we do not pre-plan.
No, we don't.
This just happens randomly.
Yes.
And if you want to see come along and watch the YouTube video version. Catch us on the couch in our green outfits.
Exactly.
So we are talking about reflecting on 2025. That is the topic of today's episode.
Yes.
We are at the end of the year, like we all know.
Yeah. It's
We
December.
are wrapping up season 1. Perfect time to look back and reflect before we keep looking forward.
Yep.
It's been a big year for us.
It's been such a big year.
Yeah, we have. I feel like we've done so many things.
Yeah.
So we've started a podcast.
Started the pod, which was really, really exciting.
Yeah.
A big time commitment.
Yes, huge time commitment. We both, I think, officially became doctors this year too.
Yes.
Yep, that was a big.
Had our PhDs confirmed
graduation.
and graduated.
Yeah.
Yes.
And most of us, and us included, I think, when we are thinking about our years, we're very good at, when we're thinking forward, we're very good at those like to-do lists and planning what we should do.
Yes.
And getting ready for like what we should achieve and what's next. Probably not very good at like the done lists and the achieved lists. Like what have we done and acknowledging those achievements.
Yeah.
You know, we finish like big projects or we have big things that we accomplish and then we just move on pretty quickly from them without actually reflecting.
100%. In preparing for this episode, it really made me realize how little I do take time to reflect each year or whenever to like look back on what I achieved and like what were my successes, what were my wins.
Yeah.
But looking at the research behind how important celebrating your successes are, I want to be like, okay, this is something I'm going to do every December because it is so important to not only kind of like have goals and aspirations for the future years, but also to celebrate and reward yourself for like the amazing things you have achieved during the year as well.
Yes, absolutely. So lovely.
Let's do that.
I was about to say lovelily said. Very well said. We also, I think, you know, you said you're going to look back at the end of the year, but we're also going to touch on like how we should consistently reflect or incorporate reflecting as, I guess, a practice within our years.
Yeah.
And it is really good for our well-being and just general outcomes to reflect. So we're going to cover all of that.
100%.
Let's start by thinking about why we actually overlook our wins. So we know we need to reflect, but why is that really hard?
It's such a pertinent thing that people experience, like the lack of reflection on what went well. And that's because our brains are hardwired to focus on the negative.
Yeah.
So in psychology, there's this theory called the negativity bias. And this is the idea that our brains hold greater weight or have larger psychological impact when we experience negative information compared to positive information.
Yeah. So we're more prone to kind of holding on and remembering the negative things and focusing on them rather than focusing on the positives. And there's a researcher, Alison Ledgerwood, who's a psychology professor from the US, and they've done a lot of research on the negativity bias and how those negative experiences or thoughts, they're more sticky in our brains. They like stick to our brains more than the positive experiences. So you would know and experience this in that like negative emotions or events or information that you get in, it kind of feels like it has more impact than the positive things.
Yes.
And we remember like criticism, for example, way more than we remember praise.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I think so many people can relate to holding on to that one bit of negative feedback they received.
Yeah.
And they kind of diminish or forget about the 100 positive things. Or you hear about influencers saying, you know, the one negative comment they read about themselves, that sticks with them. And they forget about all the beautiful, kind messages they've received.
Yeah. And you can go through your whole life holding on to like, you know, one negative comment someone made about, you know, an aspect of your appearance or something and hold on to that forever.
Yes.
Because it just has such a strong impact compared to the positive things.
Yes.
Alison, the researcher, she has a TED talk. Shout out to TED again, as always.
It is a great video, her TED talk.
And in that, she uses this example, which I find so relevant for myself as well, talking about when you submit a paper to a journal for publication. And she's talking about how we kind of are going along this baseline of feeling okay. And then let's say you get a paper accepted for publication, and that's really exciting, right?
Yeah.
So that has this positive mood boost, but you come down from that back to baseline really quickly. So you go from like, oh yeah, that's great, that's so exciting, and you might be back down at baseline by lunchtime, by the end of the day. You've kind of like that good feeling's worn off. But if you get a paper rejected, you have this low, emotional response to that. So you might feel flat and really be holding on to that those like negative feelings about that paper being rejected. And it takes way longer to recover and come back up to baseline. So it might take you, it might be 2 weeks later and you're still thinking and kind of, that's still got a hold on you, that negative experience, compared to the positive thing that you come back down from so quickly. Or, if you've had a uni assignment and you got a really good mark on one, you'll be excited about that in the moment, but you might have got over it by the next day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get a really poor mark, like what you think is not a mark that you didn't want for an assignment, you might hold on to that for like the whole semester, So those negative things and experiences, they stick.
And this negativity bias makes so much sense from an evolutionary perspective as well. So if we think way back when to our ancestors who were foraging in the jungle, they had a really, really strong threat detection system, which was so important to keeping them safe from predators like tigers and like who knows what predators were in the jungle.
We always come back to the predators.
It's always the tigers, the example psychologists are on. But in modern life, we still have that really strong threat detective system, which means that when we encounter maybe negative feedback at work or a negative comment from a friend or a peer, it holds so strongly with us and we put so much weight towards it because we're biologically wired to do so.
Yes.
Which can suck.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. We really have to put effort in to actually seeing the positives and viewing things in a positive frame. I think that's kind of what this comes back to, where
it takes effort.
Yes, absolutely. It takes effort to really focus on the positives. It's not something that we can't just think like, oh yeah, I'll focus on the positives, I'll reflect on my achievements.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to happen naturally.
Exactly. It's not natural for lots of people. It requires sustained effort and it requires practice and to training our brain to do the opposite to what it's naturally inclined to do, which is thinking and focusing on the negatives.
Yes. I have seen this or have had conversations with friends and other people about this negativity bias like really coming into play in their lives when, for example, they've had a negative experience at work. So maybe there's been a time where they've felt really underappreciated or something's happened that they felt wasn't fair. And it might be one thing that was negative and their brains held on to that. And what that can do is that every other experience later, even if there's little positive things happening, it can become a lot harder to notice because your brain is already in this mind frame or like already stuck to that negative thought and feeling around, well, this, this is not a good place or I'm not liking this, and it's harder to shift on.
Yes.
Have you had any negativity bias experiences?
100%. We encounter a negative or a difficult scenario and then that becomes the lens through which we see the world. And in psychology, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy, we speak a lot about cognitive distortions and how our brain can have these like negative hardwiring and how we do focus maybe more so on the negatives. But it is really common for people to experience this. Like it happens across all different situations, whether that's, family, friends, work, relationships. So many scenarios people can find themselves having these negative thoughts and not reflecting on the positives of the scenarios. So that's what we want to encourage you to do today, to shift that focus and
Yes.
reflect on the positives.
Yes. And we will chat about now why we do need to celebrate those progresses and all the progress that we have and the wins along the way. There are a lot of psychological benefits to this too. So one of the elements is kind of a motivational boost that we get. So, you know, when you think about or reflect on successes or progress, that kind of builds some momentum that helps motivate you to keep going, kind of like a little push in the right direction.
Yeah.
Our brains also learn through reward, which we've kind of alluded to, I think, already. But when we acknowledge or reflect on a win, we're then more likely to kind of do that behavior again because we're getting that positive feedback in our brains as well. Like, this was good, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah. And this reflection on progress and wins as well also builds our self-efficacy or our feeling that we can do these things and we can achieve them. Yeah.
Exactly. It builds our confidence and our belief in ourselves to do these things. I know this is like quite a small example, but when I was in primary school, I really struggled with like maths and English. And then I remember having a teacher in year 5, and he used to say to me, "Kira, you're so good at maths." And I probably wasn't, but he built my self-efficacy. And from year 5, I had that confidence and belief in myself that like, yeah, I can do maths.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a fantastic teacher that he instilled that belief within myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful
I
example.
know.
And we can do this to ourselves and for ourselves now. When we focus on the negatives or what we haven't done or can't do, that really can do the opposite. So it can, you know, decrease that confidence and your self-efficacy and belief in yourself to achieve these things, which is why it's so important to celebrate and focus on progress and wins.
Exactly. Focus on what you have achieved so far and celebrate that, because it's amazing that you have achieved that so far. Like, good on you for doing that. And, you know, when we're kind of in those younger years at school, we might have teachers or parents or guardians or people around us who celebrate us and who give us awards and gives us ribbons. But when you're an adult, no one's really doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a supportive boss.
A ribbon. I haven't got a ribbon in so long.
I know, but you know, give yourself a ribbon and celebrate what you have achieved and accomplished this year.
Yes. Give yourself a sticker. Stickers are so fun, you know? Get the stickers out. So there's a principle for this called, or a theory called the progress principle. And Teresa Amabile, I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, but that's okay, and Stephen Kramer from Harvard Business School, they published a book called The Progress Principle, and they studied a whole lot of diary entries or records from employees across multiple companies to work out what fosters a really good inner work life. And when I say inner work life, I'm talking about those positive feelings and kind of good perception of the role and feeling motivated to continue working, kind of like your internal experience or your like thoughts and feelings about work.
Yeah.
That all being positive and good.
Yeah. Ideal.
Yeah. Ideal inner work life. So they looked at what promotes a good inner work life, and they found that making meaningful progress, so those small wins and little steps of progress, that had the most significant impact on creativity and productivity and engagement and building that really positive inner work life. The progress created this positive feedback loop. So noticing your progress then boosted motivation, and that then enables more progress. So it's kind of like it feeds into itself.
A positive cycle.
Positive cycle, yeah.
Love
and
that.
It builds that momentum. So it wasn't just about achieving that progress, those little steps of progress alone, but also about really noticing and acknowledging that progress. Like that's, I guess, one of the most important parts there is that you can make small bits of progress. If you don't acknowledge and reflect on those little steps, you will miss that opportunity to have this positive experience from noticing that you've even made that progress. It's like when we were talking about goals last week. and saying if you only set the big goal, it can be really hard to build up motivation to get there because it feels like you're not making any steps or progress towards that big goal. Like it's so important to break it down and kind of follow the steps all the way. So monitoring and tracking and celebrating small little bits of progress and achievement along the way within these workplaces, that was so important in fostering this positive experience and mood. And I kind of think like, don't rob yourself of the motivational benefit you can get by celebrating your small wins. Sometimes we feel like, oh, you know, you don't want to celebrate that thing or acknowledging that thing because you're like, it's not done. I'm still working towards it. You know, maybe it feels self-indulgent or something to actually like, you know, have these times when you're acknowledging and celebrating yourself. But if you don't do it, you're robbing yourself of this motivation and progress to keep going.
Yes.
Don't rob yourself of it, girlfriend. Just
celebrate
do it. Celebrate the small wins.
Yes. Do you have a time in your life where you think you really have done that well and you have celebrated those small achievements?
Is it sad if I say no? Probably. I'm sure I have. I can't really think of any examples. Maybe during the thesis because but I think they were structured for me. Like, you know, there's really specific timelines throughout the thesis where you have like, you know, a milestone meeting or you have a paper that's published or submitted. Like they're quite structured milestones that are obvious that other people like celebrate or bring to your attention. So I think I've done it, but probably not in an active way of myself sitting there and thinking, okay, these are all small wins. How about you? Have you been more proactive in acknowledging your small wins?
I agree with you in light of throughout the PhD thesis, there were milestones like confirmation, mid-can, where you had a panel of judges celebrating you and encouraging you, and, you know, you really were forced to reflect on what you'd done for your thesis so far, and show that to the panel of academics. I would also say when I was doing my master's placement, I had a wonderful supervisor who again supported me in like celebrating those small wins throughout my placement experience, because you know, the first time you see a client working as a provisional psych, that's a huge achievement and a huge milestone that is worth celebrating. And the first time you wrap up a client or have a successful outcome with a client, my supervisor at the time really made sure to celebrate those wins with me. And that was obviously just a really wonderful experience and a really supportive experience, but then definitely like boosted my motivation and confidence in my ability to do my job as a provisional psych, which was great. Thank you to my supervisor.
That to me also highlights how important the kind of community and network aspect of this is as well. These strategies that we're talking about are really great to help us consciously think and work towards independently celebrating and recognizing our achievements and making it a more active practice that we kind of do within our day-to-day lives. But there will also be times that feels really hard and we fall off the bandwagon of these things, and that's where that community of others that do support and uplift you are so important. Sometimes you need your supervisor, you need your friend, you need your family members or partner or whoever to be the ones that is like, wait a second, this was a big thing. We need to go out and celebrate it, or we need to sit down and reflect on that. We need to, you know, go have this nice moment where we like stop and pause and celebrate this thing. It's so, even things pass so quickly, and I found might not have seen someone for ages, and then they come up and they say, oh, I had it literally this weekend at a like a big Friendsmas celebration. I hadn't seen those people probably since I graduated or before that, and so many were like, wow, you did your PhD, your doctor, Rossetti now. And if I'm being honest, to all of that, I was like, oh, thank you. It's like, it feels like a lifetime since then. Like I really played down that achievement. I was like, oh no, That was a little, just
Yes.
playing it down and moving on.
Yes.
Bad.
But celebrate it.
Yeah.
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 So hopefully as you listen, you can take on some techniques for yourself, but then also maybe think about who in your life can you cheer on and celebrate, and what milestones have they achieved, or what successes and wins have they had this year that you also want to celebrate with them.
Yeah. And I've had conversations with people as well where, I've played down things before and they've stopped me and been like, no, Lauren, this is, a
love
big
that.
achievement that you
Yeah.
need to be proud of. It's so nice.
They're good friends.
And they're the type, when you think about the type of friend you want to be or person you want to be, I'm like, yes, that's something that I really want to embody for myself as well. That when I see my friends playing down their achievements or not reflecting on their achievements, I'm like, no,
Hold up.
Celebrate them.
Yeah.
Another theory we're going to talk about is the broaden and build theory. I'll tell you all about it. It's from Barbara Fredrickson, a researcher that developed this broaden and build theory of positive emotions. This shows us that experiencing positive emotions and kind of recognizing them or acknowledging them, so things like pride and joy, satisfaction of our achievements, love, these all broaden our experiences and thinking. So they kind of open our minds up to other opportunities, whereas negative emotions can kind of close our minds or shut us off to other experiences, and it kind of narrows our focus. So when we focus on the positive emotions, we can kind of see more possibilities, or we're open to more things. We're maybe more creative as well. For example, and maybe this example hits home for my brain because we work in kind of pediatric settings, but when a child is feeling joy and happiness and excitement, they will play, or that might be an outcome of that. So they're feeling happy, they might play. That play then leads to a whole range of opportunities for skill building and development. So problem solving, building friendships, even the physical skill building of their motor development, all of these things happen from that play.
Yeah.
And in an adult setting, although we can play as adults,
Yes.
but in an adult setting, we might think of if you're feeling happy and excited, so if you're feeling those positive emotions when you meet someone new, you're more open to building that relationship and fostering that friendship or connection. So if you go in with those positive emotions, your brain is, or I guess your mind is more open to, you might have a more deep conversation with them. You might talk to them for longer. You might open up those opportunities.
Yeah.
And then that friendship can lead to a range of positive outcomes. So then, you might have different positive experiences with that person. You may learn something from them, for example. In this broaden and build theory, the broaden element is that when we are feeling those positive experiences, they broaden or open up our minds to what we can experience. So we have kind of we're ready to take on different things, and then it builds skills, networks, social opportunities, connections, because we're more open to those things. Yeah. So more positive emotions, more experiences over time, it kind of has a compounding effect. Do you think you've had that before, where you've been feeling really positive and you've been open to more things, or something good is coming out of it?
100%. I think this just encapsulates me as a person.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling positive, feeling upbeat, I'm so ready to take on the world and to dive deep into conversations and meet people and get the most out of life.
Yes.
On the flip side of that, I can also recognize that when I'm feeling a bit down about myself, I do definitely enclose myself in and kind of shut myself off, which this is a personal thing, but
I'm thinking about myself when I am in a really overstimulated, stressed mood and I'm walking in a really busy place. I'm
Chadston,
eyes down,
December.
This swift walking, I'm making no eye contact, and I've got the worst expression on my face. I probably look so mean, and I'm just speed walking through the people. No, I'm not open to anything. Like, no one talk to me, everyone get out of my way. But when I'm feeling good and I'm having a restful day, I'm smiling at the passers-by. I'm saying hello. I'll have a random conversation with the person at the coffee shop. I'll have many, and I'll see so many things. Yeah. Wow. Who knew the psychology theories were true?
So we've spoken about the positive psychological benefits that celebrating our achievements can bring.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make the most of this?
Yeah. Great question. I wanted to touch on this research by Fred Bryant and Joseph Veroff. They talk about this concept of savoring. And I think this is really helpful as we move into the new year to think about how can we actually take stock of, acknowledge, and make the most of our positive experiences in the moment, as well as reflecting on positive experiences in the past and looking to ones in the future. So how can we make the most of and like really get our brains locked in on the good things that happen to us? So savoring is kind of the positive counterpart to coping. So when we think about coping, we have strategies for, you know, how we deal with negative events. So stress or disappointment or failure, we have these coping strategies for that. But we also need strategies for processing and really enhancing positive emotions, which is this concept of savoring. So it's really the capacity to kind of attend to, so like focus on, appreciate, and then really enhance the positive experiences that we have in our life, which sounds great to me.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, like we're taught those coping strategies, but we really don't lock in on savoring or making the most of a positive experience.
Yeah, enjoying the good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, how can we do that? Do you have any tips?
So there's I guess 3 parts to this savoring concept. The first is reminiscing. So this part is reflecting on past positive experiences that we've had. So reflecting on the good things from the year, for example, which we're telling you all about how to do. So really thinking back on those past positive experiences. The main one, I guess, in the moment is savoring what's happening. So savoring the moment. This is mindfully attending to your kind of current positive experiences. So in the moment when you're having that positive experience, how are you feeling? What's going on? Really like letting yourself fully feel, be present, and acknowledge the positive experience so that it's locked down in your brain. Like you're really, essentially, I think about it as like you're standing there and you're soaking up the positive experience. Like you're taking in all that good energy. You're really letting yourself feel it.
You know what's epic?
What?
I have vivid memories from my childhood and teenage years where I savored moments where I was sitting on a beautiful beach with a beautiful sunset and I thought to myself, I will probably not be this relaxed and calm and at ease in my life. Enjoy this. And I look back on those moments and I was like, 14-year-old Kira was right. Like that was an epic moment. And I hope our listeners also have moments where they can reflect on and be like, that was an epic moment and I savored it and I really appreciated the moment as a beautiful, wonderful moment whilst I was living it.
Yes.
Because we remember them as well.
Yeah, we need to do it. We need to be actively savoring. The last part is anticipating. So this is thinking about future positive experiences. So I guess getting that positive benefit of thinking like, I'm going to have this thing coming up. That's going to be amazing.
I'm so excited for the party this weekend.
Yes. I was thinking in my mind, I'm so excited for season 2 of the podcast, but also the party this weekend. Sure. Yeah. I can get around to that too. That is savoring, which I just wanted to add in there as a little thing to think about and make sure we're kind of keeping in mind as we roll into the new year.
Love that.
We are now going to talk about the practical strategies, the ways to reflect on 2025. We know why it's important. We know that it's hard for us because our brains are sticky to the negative things, but it's really, a really great thing to do at the end of the year to take stock, to reflect, like we said at the beginning, both to check in and acknowledge those achievements and successes, but also to kind of get a sense of what do I want more and less of in the new year? Like, what do I really want to hone in on and kind of do more of and experience more of, and what would I like less of as well?
One great strategy is a win journal, similar to a gratitude journal or a to-do list, but it's almost the inverse, where you're writing down what you have achieved and what you have done.
A done list.
A done list. And it can be daily, weekly, or whenever kind of suits you.
Yeah.
But to sit down and to write or to journal, what have I achieved? What have I accomplished?
Yeah.
And to, reward yourself and celebrate yourself for what you have accomplished.
Yes. The small wins, not just the big ones as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it could be, I attended a new workout class this week. I made a new friend. I spoke to someone new whilst I was out and about during the week.
Yeah. And even just small things like you had a good conversation with someone, you completed a task, you made your bed in the morning, you handled, a difficult situation came up and, it went well, you learned something new, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But when we write down these things and they're on our done list, that, or, you could type it out, whatever you like, that makes this physical kind of visible, concrete record of those achievements and those small wins. Then you can look back on that as well. And it helps us to kind of counter or come up against that negativity bias. Like it's fighting against the negativity bias because you're actively and kind of physically acknowledging those positives and successes.
And for some people, it might be handy to have it in like their notes app on their phone.
Yeah.
So that when they're having a bad day and the overwhelming thoughts are those negative thoughts, you can flick back to your positive done list or accomplishments list and think about, oh, you know what, like I am a great friend to this person and I've accomplished this, and celebrating your wins.
Absolutely. It's also if you're doing something like a gratitude journal already, like you do that nightly or you do that every so often, it can just be a small prompt you add in, like what was one thing that went well today, what was one thing I achieved today, and it can be as small or big as you like. So lock it into the schedule. It's important to also be specific, so not just I did well, but be specific about what you did well or what went well and why it matters. So for example, I handled that presentation confidently, even though I was nervous, and that took courage. So I guess pairing that with what specifically happened and then why that was important. So another example might be I had a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, and that showed integrity.
I'm almost thinking about, remember when you're at school and you'd get reports from your teachers? And sometimes they were a bit like vague and they were just like, Lauren tried hard in this subject. Well done. And you're like, okay, well, how do I improve? Or like, what did I do well at? Like, give me more. Give yourself more. And be really specific and be like, I pushed myself out of my comfort zone and I gave a speech and that took lots of courage, and previously public speaking has been really difficult for me, for example. But be really specific with what you're proud of. Don't just say, good job, Lauren.
Because when we're specific about the behavior and about why that's important or what that's taken, so you're acknowledging that took courage or that was a really big step for you, that helps us to reinforce those behaviors or those things that we want to keep doing more of. So it helps again to build that momentum and push us in the direction that we want to go. Making visual or kind of tangible reminders of your achievements and wins also helps us to really keep track of those things as well along the year, and it makes reflecting a lot easier when we can look back
100%.
As well. So things like taking photos of yourself at different achievements, things like certificates and awards, or screenshots of like positive feedback. So things, you might have got an email from a colleague or a boss or someone saying like, well done for this thing, or even just like thank you for helping. You might have got a good comment on an assignment and you're going to take a screenshot of that as well. It might also be the journaling and physically writing down that done list and those accomplishment lists, because those all give us that real concrete evidence that we can look back on and see, okay, here are all the things that I've achieved. And it helps even for us to revisit it when we're feeling like a lack of motivation or we're feeling like we haven't made enough progress or achieved enough that year. But then you can look back and think, okay, here are all of these things that I've achieved, and I've got this kind of this whole big folder full of this evidence. And it can even be scrolling back through your camera roll and just noticing all the things you will have forgotten that you've achieved.
I know of people who have folders on their work laptops of those like positive feedback that they've received from colleagues, so that on those tough days when that motivation is low, they can think back or look back at their accomplishment, and that boosts their motivation and self-efficacy and belief in their work.
Yeah, so good. It's also important to think about sharing this, I guess, achievements or accomplishments strategically sometimes. So it can be about choosing the right people and sharing that information with people who are really going to give you that kind of, they're going to celebrate your wins with you.
Yes.
Yeah. It can be really challenging when you've got something that you're excited about, that you've achieved, that you want to share, and you go and you tell someone about that, and then it's minimized, or it's, they've deflected, or they're pointing out the negatives about it. That can be
or they're focusing on themselves and trying to one-up you with their achievements. Or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone in the world is great at cheering you on or being a cheerleader and celebrating your success.
Yes.
And sometimes you do need to be a bit strategic, which maybe sounds a bit bad, but think about who are the people in your life who celebrate your wins and who promote you and encourage you and who, want to be there for you.
Yeah. Yes, because you don't necessarily want this. You've got those positive emotions, you're focusing on that achievement. You don't necessarily want to then take that news to someone maybe, for example, it's an extended family member or something. They always point out a negative element of that. Or you've got a friend and that maybe when you share that news, it's deflected often, and you then know that you walk away from those interactions feeling really disheartened and flat, and that's what we don't want to do, right? We want to be building up those positive experiences and emotions and making sure we're celebrating our wins. And the thing if I think about this year, there's been times when, for example, with the podcast, I've told people about it, or we've just launched, and I've had this beautiful, wonderful response that's been so heartwarming and wonderful. And then at other times I've mentioned to someone, I've started this thing, and the response have been like, okay, and that's been the end of the conversation, and that can be really disheartening because then you think, oh gosh, I've put in so much work and effort to this, to build this thing I'm excited about, and the response has been like, okay, or it's a friend that's never asked me about it again in 6 months, for example. Like that type of stuff can be tricky, but it's also important that we do the same for others. So Kira's got the big nod on. She's like, yep.
Be a cheerleader for others. Like when they come to you with wins, celebrate them. There's nothing better than being a positive friend and a supportive friend. And as you were saying all of that, I'm just thinking about friends who have been such great supports and who have celebrated some achievements I've had throughout the year, and just like reflecting on how beautiful those moments were when they sent me a kind message or they showed up and supported me. And on the flip side, you also sometimes remember those people who weren't there to cheer you on, which can be a bit disheartening, but just important to remember kind of who those people are who have showed up for you in the past. And usually they're good go-tos for people who will show up for you in the future and who will be there to celebrate your wins and support you.
Yes. And when we are thinking about doing that support back for others, it's helpful to ask questions, show genuine interest, rather than just oh, wow, that's amazing. It's really being curious and invested and interested in those successes. that it's that active celebration or that active acknowledgement of people's achievements, which is what really kind of strengthens those relationships. And it also then creates this culture within your friendships or within your relationships of this mutual celebration. So the more you do that to others and you're actively celebrating their successes, the more that will hopefully happen in return as well.
Like we've spoken about, it's so important to celebrate all the little wins along the way, not just the final destination or the big goal that you accomplish at the end, but celebrating those small wins.
Yes, that'll keep the motivation going. We are going to end on how to kind of lock in on our end of year reflection. So looking back on 2025, create some dedicated time to do this. I am going to lock it in my calendar because I know that I'll talk about it, and if it's not in my calendar, I won't do it. So set aside half an hour, something like that. Sit down, try and have it without distractions, and really dedicate that time to reflecting on your year. Try and include all life domains if you can. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about things like the wheel of life. So the wheel of life is, I guess, a tool. It's often used in psychology. It has all different areas of life like health, career, love, spirituality, friends, money, family, fun, all kinds of areas. Write down what achievements or progress or goals that you made in kind of each of these areas of your life. It can be the ones that feel relevant to you. If not all of those feel relevant, that's okay. An activity that we can also do around these areas within the wheel of life is thinking about, so each of those areas, rating them on how important they are to you. So I might say, okay, health. From 0 to 10, how important is health to me in my life? And then also rate that area in how much am I focusing on or putting effort into this area. So you know, in 2025, for example, health, or let's say friends. In 2025, friends may have been like 8 out of 10 important to me in my kind of wheel of life. But how much was I focusing or putting effort into friendships? Maybe you look back and you realize, I was putting like a 5 out of 10 into friendships, but it's an 8 out of 10 important to me. And there's a bit of a discrepancy there, right? So it's like, how does that align? Do I need to put more effort into that area? You might also see, well, friends are 10 out of 10 important and I'm putting 10 out of 10 effort into friendship. Perfect. Keep it up. Yeah. Good reflections. Also look back at the evidence when you're doing this, when you're sitting down and doing this reflection of your 2025 year. And you can look at things like we said, those bits of physical evidence, and you might not have all of the things if you've just listened to this episode and then you're implementing that next year, but you can scroll through your photos to help prompt that memory of your different achievements. Look at your calendar for events and things that you had on. Like have a look back to kind of, you know, even checking your emails to see like what projects or things you worked on and that you've achieved.
For the financial domain, look at your bank statements.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll be doing that, but I'm going to have a positive reflection of my 2025. You can do that though. There are some questions that I think are a nice way for us to wrap up this episode, and they're kind of like a guide to think about when reflecting on the year.
These questions were inspired by a New York Times article, but I think, as you said, are applicable for different settings and reflecting on the year as a whole.
Yeah, it was written originally for kind of reflecting on the school years and as a teacher resource, but I think it's pretty applicable.
So the first question is, what do you want to remember about this year and why? What surprised you? What challenged you? What challenges did you overcome? What successes are you most proud of? What did you learn, whether in or out of work? How have you grown? How could you build on that growth next year? How am I different now than I was in January? What relationships grew stronger? And what skills did I develop?
Yeah, I like all of those questions. Yeah. And those can be prompts that help guide kind of where you go in your reflection of 2025. Also share this with someone. You know, you could share some of those reflections, but you can also ask a friend or a family member, a partner, someone else to I guess reflect on your year too. Like, what are their reflections in terms of what did they see as your successes for the year? What did they see as the growth that you made this year or the progress that you made? It's quite lovely, especially when you're asking kind of for those positive feedbacks. Like, you could send a message in your friends group chat. This is my reflection of your growth and achievements for this year that I've noticed. Like, what have you noticed for me? And just, getting some of the views from others as well.
So good.
That brings us to the end, as we always say, of our 25th episode of the podcast and the end of season 1 of This Might Help.
Yay, we did it.
I know. I cannot believe we've done a whole season, and that's like 25 weeks of episodes, which is a huge effort that we're going to celebrate because we are celebrating our achievements, savoring the moment.
Yes.
Soak it all up, Kira. Take it in.
A relationship that I've built has definitely been with you and the time we spent together, and a big growth of mine from this year is definitely the podcast.
Yes.
So thank you so much for doing it alongside me.
Oh, thank you, Kira. Love you. All have to hear our Sophie, celebration of each other, but that's what we're celebrating.
Yes.
That's what we're promoting in the new year. As always, we will have the references and the resources. There are quite a few actually from today's episode. They'll be in the show notes so they can help guide your reflection for 2025 and your reflecting practices for the new year. There are also links to helplines as well if anyone needs, as always.
You can find us at This Might Help Pod.
No, are you kidding me? No. If anyone listened to last week's episode, Kira did the same thing with forgetting our handles. Again, it's a goal for Kira for 2026. Remember that This Might Help handles. Try again. Go for gold.
Okay, you can find us at This Might Help Podcast on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yes,
and
great.
We are available in Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you already know that because you're listening. So thank you so much for supporting
they might be watching on the YouTube. So, we will see you next year. We won't see you, or you won't hear us next week. We're having a well-deserved break and rest, and we'll be back in your ears with season 2. We're excited to show you what we've been working on and the plan for the new year, setting our goals, getting ready.
Yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks so much.
Bye.